Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome. Today's daf is SUKKAH Daf Nun. We begin at the bottom of Memtes Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom, right at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, Kemaseu b'choil, going back to Nisech ha-mayim, they would fill this bucket with fresh water from the Shiloyach stream. The way they did it during the weekdays, they would do the same during Shabbos, except with one difference, that for Shabbos they had to prepare that water in advance. They would fill the water before Shabbos and put it into a barrel which was not kadosh. It was not considered a klei sharis, in which case it would not be mekadosh its content to the level of kedushas haguf to become inherently kadosh and designated for mizbeach use, in which case you would have a problem. You know what would happen? If you would leave it overnight, it becomes pasalbalina, because anything that becomes kadosh, kedushas haguf, inherently kadosh, kedushas carbon, kedushas mizbeach, has to be attended to on that day, on the Yom HaKarban. But if it's left overnight, it becomes pasalbalina. Says the one, what's the problem? V'amai, why do you need a kli which is not kadosh, which doesn't have kedushas kli sharis, which is not mekadosh its content to the level of kedushas haguf? Naisi b'mekudeshes. Why can't you fill this water in a kli sharis, which is kadosh? What does the Gemara mean by this kasha? Let's go down to Rashi, 4 lines from the bottom. Rashi begins with the words Vamai. Vamai naisi b'mekudeshes. The Gemara figures at this point, in order for something to become kadosh kedushas haguf and become susceptible to pesul lina, meaning if it was left overnight it becomes pasul, 2 conditions have to be met. There are 2 criterions. Number 1, it has to be the required amount. Let's say in terms of water, it has to be the right amount of water which is meant for pouring on the mizbech. Otherwise, suppose you overfill, it doesn't have the right amount, then the water in this form is not meant for mizbech, it doesn't have kedushas haguf, and wouldn't become pasalbalina in its current state. Number 2, in order for the kli to function as a kli sharis and be mekadosh its content, you know what you need? Intention, das, purpose, kavana. The kli on its own doesn't work independently. It serves as a utensil for the person using that kli. So unless you have kavana that the kli should be mekadosh its content, it doesn't just happen automatically. And that's the basis for the Gemara's kasha. It says Rashi va'amai naisi b'mekudeshes. The kosalka daite. The Gemara at this point figures 2 conditions need to be met. Number 1, ein hakli mekadosh on kedushas haguf li pasalbalina. The kli will not affect its content and make it kadosh to the extent that it's kedushas haguf, kedushas mizbeach. In which case, if it's left overnight, it becomes pasalbalina. That won't happen unless Elohim kain da'atay sheikad shenu akli. Number 1, you need to have das that the kli should be serving you in this capacity, should be mekadosh its content as you wish it should do. Number 1, oy im yesh bahen yosim b'kashir ein ru'in l'kli ein akli mekadoshan. And likewise, if there's too much content there, in the case of mayim, you need 3 lug. If there are 4 lug, it's too much. It's overfull. That's not the right amount for the mizbeach, and the kli won't be mekadosh it. De'ein mekachin ela haroi lohem, because the kli can only affect something which is suitable for the kli, something which is meant for mizbeach. So that's the Gemara's kasha. Why don't you have a simple solution? Fine, you have to fill it before Shabbos, but you can use a kli sharis. Just overfill it more than the shear. It won't become kaddish. Just have in mind, I don't want it to become kaddish, kedushas haguf. It won't get kedusha. In which case, you can leave it overnight safely, without any possibility of psulina. Answers the Gemara on the bottom line. You know why we avoid a kli sharis? We have 3 terutzim. Amar Zeiri, that's incorrect. Your propositions are incorrect. Number 1, Kasavar, apparently our Mishnah holds, Ein shir l'mayim. At least in the case of water, there is no exact shiur. So although we spoke about 3 lugin, that's preferred, that's a chatchila. But it isn't absolute. Even if you pour more than that, you're yaitze the mitzvah. So if the kli is filled with more than 3 lugin, it will still affect its content. That's number 1. So the shiur factor won't help us. Number two, ukli sharis mikachin shlei midas. It does work on its own. Kli sharis is sort of an independent power. Once you fill it with something, it becomes kadosh, kedushas guf, whether that was your intention or not. Therefore, says the Gemara, v'yimaisi b'mkodeshes. If I'll fill this water in a kli sharis, which is kadosh, if silu huluhu belina, if you leave it overnight, it becomes pasa belina. Even if it's more than the shear. When it comes to water, there isn't really an absolute shear. Any amount really works. It will become kadosh, kedushas guf. As far as kavana, that's also not a necessary component. So even if his das was that there should not be kedusha, the kedusha will apply to the maim, to the content of the kli, and will become pasabelina. And therefore we need to use a kli which is not kadosh. Chizki Amar, he has another teretz. I agree with the first contention, that there is no shiur for water. That I agree. But when it comes to das, he still holds that you need das for the kli to be mekadosh its content. Klei sharis and mekachin elamidas. Typically, for the kli sharis to work, you need to have das of the user of that kli in order to be mekadosh its content. So the way Rashi explains it, he agreed to the first thing, but disagreed with the second. As opposed to Zeir, who said, there's no shear when it comes to water. There's no das needed here. The kli is mekadosh its content regardless. Chizkiah disagrees. He says, when it comes to the shiur aspect, I agree. I agree with you. Apparently, there is no shiur. There's no absolute measure when it comes to water, and therefore any amount would become kaddish. So that can't be used as a solution. Overfill it. That won't help you. But I maintain that when it comes to da'as, the kli won't work unless the one using the kli wants the kli to work in this capacity, to be mekadosh its content. So that takes us back to our question. Why can't they use a kli sharis and just not have das for the kli to be mekadosh its water? He writes, says Chizkiah, there's a concern, there's a gzera. Technically, it's not kaddish, there's no psulina. Ugzera shema yoimru l'das nizkashu. There's a concern that the observer might misconceive what's happening. He might mistakenly think that it was filled with the intention to become kaddish, with das, and still you're allowing it to stay overnight without concern. It's going to cause confusion and mistake, and therefore we prefer avoiding the situation, and we fill in a kli which is not kaddish. Amr B'yanai, Amr B'zer. I have a third teretz to the kasha. Afilu tema yesh shiur l'mayim. Even if you would say that there is an absolute measure when it comes to the water for nisach hamayim, and theoretically, if you overfill the kli, it's not going to become kaddish. That's number one. Ukli shoris en mekachin elamidas. You're 100% right. Kli is not going to be mekadosh unless you have that in mind. Oh, this is exactly what we figured originally. So if you overfill it, there's no concern of kedusha. If you have no das, no concern of kedusha. So why can't you use a kli sharis? Fill it before Shabbos, leave it overnight, and just be mekadosh it on Shabbos. When you rework the amount, you adjust the shiur to the exact amount, and you have kavanah of kedusha at that point. Why can't that work? Ugzera. He also works based on a gzera, concerned of misconception. Ugzera shema yomer. Perhaps the observer will think this wasn't filled for nisach ha-mayim, in which case it's not kaddish. No, it was filled for a different purpose. L'kiddush yadayim raglayim molon. He filled it for the kohen gadol's use. Let's go over to Rashi, directly to the right. Gzera shema yomru l'kiddush yadayim raglayim l'kohen gadol milon b'kitcha b'kli. She'em mekachim yadayim raglayim el b'mayim kadoshim. Because in order to be mekadosh your hands and feet, it needs to be mayim which is kaddish, dumi the kir. Just as the water in the kir was coming from a kli which was kaddish, shenimshach b'shaman ha-mishcha, u'mekadosh es meimav. Behem l'kiddush yadayim raglayim, va'af kitan shal zav, she'u oisen l'chvedesh l'kohen gadol l'kalish himenu yadav raglav. And Rashi makes reference to that kitan shal zav, this golden container mentioned in Maseches Yuma, which was used occasionally, at least on Yom Kippur, was used for the kiddush yadayim raglayim of the kohen gadol. Seder Yuma per tarfa kafli. That was also kaddish. People will say over here, in our case, they won't realize that it was filled for the sake of nisach hamayim. They'll think it was meant for the kohen gadol's use. In that case, there's no exact amount, so shiur can't can't hold back the kedusha from being applied, can't hold back the lina from being applied, because it has no shiur. Even if you fulfill it with 100 lug, that's okay for the kohen gadol's kiddush dan raglayim. There's no absolute amount there, so they'll think that it was meant for that purpose. Even though it's more than 3 lug, well, it's for the kohen gadol's use. There's no shiur. There's no das for kedusha. There is das for kedusha because he filled it for the washing the hands and feet of the kohen gadol. So there was kedusha. That's going to be the misconception. But then afterwards, when he notices the menas chiluhu come tomorrow in Shabbos, they're using this water, which in their minds was filled for the kohen gadol's use, was already kaddish from yesterday and became possible lina. What are they going to say? They're going to conclude Amar ein lina ma'elas b'nesachim. Nesachim, which became kaddish, don't get affected by being left overnight. That's a grave mistake. So on account of this concern, we say, don't get involved in a klisharis, just fill it. And a chavis she'enim mukadeshes. So let's just sum up this piece of Gemara. Mishnah says that when they need to prepare the water on occasion of nisach hamayim for Shabbos, they would fill in a kli which was not kaddish. And the question was, why worry about a kli kaddish being mekadosh the content and creating a concern of psolina? Shouldn't we assume that there's a shiur for this mayim, in which case if you overfill the kli, it won't become kaddish at this point. Number 2, isn't the kli only mekadosh if you have that in mind? It's only medas. In this case, have no das for kedusha until tomorrow when you're ready to use it. We have 3 terutzim. According to Zeiri, well, this mayim over here doesn't really have a shiur. So any amount would become kaddish. And a klisharis could be mekadosh even without das. According to Chizkiah, he agrees that there is no shiur l'mayim, so overfilling won't help you. But kiddush only happens if it's midas. But in this case, people might not realize that there was no das. They'll think it was filled with das of kedusha. So how can you go ahead and use it tomorrow? That'll create confusion. Let's try to avoid that and use a kli chayil. According to Rabbi Zera, mayim has a shiur. So if you overfill it, there's no kedusha. The kli is only mekadosh midas. There's no das, there's no kedusha. So what's the concern? People might think it wasn't filled for this purpose. It was filled for another function. For the kohen's gadol's kiddush dan raglayim, in which case there was das of kiddush, in which case there's no shiur there. Any amount works, and would become kaddish, would become pasabalina. So why are you using this water today? Therefore, we say avoid the situation. Just use a kli which is not kaddish. Continues the Mishnah, nishpecha nisgalsa. If the water which was left around from before Shabbos got spilled or exposed to the elements, the snakes, it can't be used. And Rashi in the Mishnah explained that if there's venom in the water, it is now missing the shiur because it's venom instead of water. According to Tosfos, it's inappropriate to use this type of material for a carbon. Says, well, what's the concern? V'amai, why can't it be used? Let us just run it through its strainer and pick out the venom. That works. Should we say our Mishnah is not following Rabbi Nechemia, who held that this type of method would work when it comes to venom of a snake, the sanya. Suppose you're straining something through a strainer. The liquid which was strained will still present a concern of gila. So meaning if it was exposed to the elements and there's a concern that a snake may have deposited his venom there. According to this shita, Tanakama, the Rabbanon, even if it was strained through a strainer, you'll never know. The venom could have gotten through and meant to keep away on account of sakana. Amar Rabbi Nechemia, Eimasai, when is there a sakana? Bizman shatachtoine megula, when the bottom kli to which the wine trickled into is exposed. Yeah, then there's a concern because perhaps a snake drank from the bottom one. But if the bottom kli is completely covered, there's no concern that the snake accessed the bottom kli. Even though the top one was exposed, there's no concern of exposure because a snake's venom is compared to a piece of a sponge. It floats, it just stays as is. So when you run the wine through a strainer, let's assume the spongy venom stayed on top. So what's wrong with exposed water, says the Gemara? Just run it through the misanenes. Separate any possible venom from the water and use the rest. Says the Gemara, Filu Temer Reb Nechemia. Now Mishnah could be following even Reb Nechemia, who holds that technically you can separate one from the other. Eimer de Amar Reb Nechemia lehedit. Yeah, Reb Nechemia only allows a ordinary person to partake in this liquid. There's no concern of sakana. Do you think that he allows it to be brought to Hashem as a carbon? It's inappropriate. Something from which a snake took part. It's not high quality liquid, not high quality water or wine. It doesn't belong on the mizbeach. You suppose that Reb Nechemia doesn't hold of the following pasuk, which tells us bring the highest quality for Hashem's karbanas. The pasuk is admonishing those who bring low quality, inferior products to Hashem. Go try bringing it lefechasecha to your governor as a gift. Is he going to accept it? Are you going to find favor in his eyes? Amar Hashem tzvakos, in the name of Hashem. So although technically you can separate the venom from the mayim, but it lost its standing, lost its quality. It's not meant for the mizbeach. So conclusion, what's wrong with exposed wine or exposed water? According to Chachamim, you never know, there might be some errors stuck in there. According to Nechemia, even if after you run through the strainer, it's still not roi l'Hashem for a carbon. Hadron lach lulav arava. Hechalal chamisha v'shisha. We spoke about the chalal, the flute, the instruments, which performed during the Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, the celebration, in honor of the drawing and pouring of the water, which was a great occasion in the Beis HaMikdash. We're going to see soon in the Gemara. They would draw Ruach HaKodesh at that point. So in any case, this celebration involving all these instruments took place throughout Sukkot. So how many days of Sukkot? Sometimes Chamisha, and sometimes Veshisha, sometimes 5 or 6 days. We're going to see soon why. Zehu hechalal shel Beis HaShe'eva. This is referring to the chalal, the flute, of the Beis HaShe'eva, of the celebration marking the drawing and pouring of the water. Now, why do we mention specifically the chalal? The Mepharshim say because it was the most pronounced of all instruments, the shrillest sounding instrument. Actually, the orchestra would begin. That was the first note. The chalal would kick off the playing and would actually play the last note as well. So it was the most noticeable, and we refer to the orchestra as chalal. In any case, it's referring to this simcha during Beis HaShe'eva, and the reason why we only have 5 or 6 days is because we're limited. It doesn't override Shabbos or Yom Tov. Let's go to Rashi. Let's begin the Perek in Rashi. It's about 6 lines from the bottom. Hechalal chamisha v'shisha. Pa'amim shu shisha yamim. Pa'amim chamisha. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 5. Zeu chalal sheyimachalin l'rabbi simcha l'beis HaShe'eva k'farish b'gemara. This was the flute, the chalal, the instruments used to celebrate the Simchas Beis HaShe'eva. What is Beis HaShe'eva? The house, the Beis HaMikdash, in which the She'eva ceremony took place. Kol simchazu eina ela b'shvel nisuch hamayim k'nefarish u'sha'avte mayim b'sasim. So how do we get 5 or 6 days? You have to deduct for Shabbos and Yom Tov. She'ena doiche v'chul. Hilkach, chal Yom Tov lias b'Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, so Shabbos and Yom Tov are the same day, so you only deduct 1 for both. So you're left with 6 days of Chol HaMoed. Pashalu shisha cholosh HaMoed. Nimtza cholol shisha. You have 6 days of instruments. However, Chol Yom Tov b'Chol. Yom Tov falls out on a weekday. So Shabbos and Yom Tov are not on the same day. Havlu Trei Yomis. You have to deduct for 2 days. Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Delay dachilu. Pashalu chamisha. So you have to deduct 2 days. 1 for Shabbos, 1 for Yom Tov. And you're only left with 5 days of Chol HaMoed. Now what's wrong with playing instruments on Shabbos or Yom Tov? So Taisus brings, he asks that as a kasha. He says it's not a malacha. The Isser is only with the Rabbanon. Shema Yisakan Kleshir. He might go ahead and repair the instrument, might fine-tune the instrument, which is a malacha of Makam Patish, repairing, adjusting a Kli. But since it's only with the Rabbanon, we know, with Kaimalon says Taisus, the Ein Shvus B'Migdash. We never apply a Yisud Rabbanon, a Shvus, in the Beis HaMikdash. So why would they not play instruments on Shabbos or Yom Tov in the Mikdash? Answers Taisus. Is on the last line of Taisus, last line of the Amid. The Kaimel and the Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. Answers Taisus Beis HaShe'eva Shani. This is different. Kamina B'Gemara. De'eina Elam Hashem Simcha Yisera. It wasn't really an integral part of the Akrava. It wasn't really a vital element in the Akrava and the Nisach HaMayim. It wasn't really required Min HaTorah. It was just to express Simcha Yisera and Dveikas and Chavivos, connection to Hashem. This type of celebration, this type of orchestra playing, not justify overriding a Shvus, and it's not included in the concept of Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. Very interesting point. Just before I go into that, there's a Taisus in Amud Beis who actually adds another aspect. He says there were a lot of instruments, Roiv, Kleishir, Chalilim, Kinuris, Mitzalsayim, Navalim, many instruments, cymbals and harps and lyres and who knows, Shetzrichim L'Sakin Tada, which needed constant fixing and repairing, Gaz B'Hutvei Mihani. So Taisus adds another element in, since it was very common to have to fix and to repair and to adjust, to fine-tune the multitude of instruments, so it was something very real. So this concern was something that was not overridden, despite the fact that it's in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Farshim put together this Taisus and the next Taisus. It seems that because it was such a common and real concern, this was really a true Shavus, which was not overridden in the Beis HaMikdash. The Shaila is, what does that mean? It is in the Beis HaMikdash. Why is there a Shavus B'Mikdash? So it seems from Taisus here, and if you take a look at the Gemara Beis, Daf Yud Aleph on Beis, it's clear in the Gemara as well that the concept of Ein Shvus B'Mikdash is not a blank check. It's not that there's no Shvus to Rabbanon in the Mikdash. It's only when it interferes with Avodas HaMikdash, with Karbanos. Then we say Ein Shvus B'Mikdash Chacham suspended Shvusin of Shabbos and Yom Tov, so that it doesn't interfere with the Avodah, with the Karbanos. But something, an event, which happened to take place in the Beis HaMikdash wasn't directly Avodah or carbon related, such as Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, which is just Simcha Yisera. That's not included in the concept of Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. The kasha remains. What about Shofar? Rashi in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chavtes on Beis, says the reason why they blew Shofar in the Mikdash on Shabbos, despite the fact that there was a Shvus against blowing on Shabbos, is because Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. Lashon Rashi there. So how does that work with this Taisus? The answer seems to be because that the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says that blowing a shofar is zikaron. It's mala zichroinan shel Yisrael lavein shabashamayim. It presents the zikaron, the remembrance, and the true essence of Yisrael to Hashem. The Gemara compares it to a carbon. In fact, that's why we can't blow with a cow's horn, a bull's horn, because it reminds Kaviyachal Hashem of the egel. And we know that a prosecutor cannot be turned into a defense lawyer. Inka teger nasas aneger. The question is, that only applies in the Kaddish HaKadoshim, while outside the Kohanim would wear gold. Right? Only inside you don't wear gold to avoid any reference to the gold of the egel. But outside, in the Heichal, in the Azor, they would wear gold. So what's wrong with blowing a shofar which is reminiscent of the Chet Egel? So the Gemara says, listen to the statement. The Gemara says, Kivun del Zikarnu, since the shofar is meant to arouse the remembrance of Klal Yisrael, Kilifnim Dam, it's as though you're all the way inside the Kaddish HaKadoshim. It brings out the true essence, the root, the core essence, the core identity of Klal Yisrael, which is really truly connected with Hashem. So that's like going into the Kaddish HaKadoshim, where Klal Yisrael and Hashem really truly bond and fuse together, so to speak. So using a shofar which is reminiscent of the Chet Egel is inappropriate, because it's as though you're going into the Kaddish HaKadoshim, touching the root and the core of Klal Yisrael's relationship with Hashem. So that works very well. Rashi says you blow the shofar in the Mikdash because Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. The question was, blowing a shofar? It's not avodah. It surely is avodah. In fact, the Gemara says it's like avodah, a carbon not only outside, in the Kaddish HaKadoshim. So certainly there's no shvus when it comes to this type of thing. Okay, getting back to our discussion. Simchas Eva involved a cholil, many instruments, and would take place all throughout the weekday days of Yom Tov, but not Shabbos or Yom Tov. Continues the Gemara on the base. Itma, we learned in the base medrash. A machlokes is between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Eina. Chad Tani She'eva. One read Simchas Beis She'eva, drawing. V'chad Tani Chashuva. Simchas Beis Chashuva, something important, something prominent. Amar Marzutra, Man de Tani She'eva le'mishtabish. You meant to know that the one that reads She'eva is correct. It's not really a mistake. It makes sense. Uman de Tani Chashuva le'mishtabish. And likewise, the one who read Simchas Beis Chashuva, that's also correct. It's also not a mistake. They both make sense. How is that? Man de Tani She'eva le'mishtabish. The one who reads She'eva is not mistaken because it makes sense. T'chsib u'sha'avta mayim b'sasin, as the pasuk says, you meant to draw this water with pomp, with celebration, with happiness. Simchas Beis Hasheva. This was a simcha took place in the Beis Hamikdash, a makom of drawing, of pouring. And in fact, Tosfos brings the Yerushalmi. If you'd like to take a look at the Tosfos, it's up on top, on the first line. Chad Tani She'eva. Listen to this Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi mefarish. How do we get to She'eva? What does that have to do with anything? Drawing. Yerushalmi mefarish shemesham shevim ruach hakodesh. So although it's the pashat pshat is because of the drawing of the water from the stream, but it has a deeper meaning as well. Drawing the water was symbolic of a spiritual drawing. Shemesham shevim ruach hakodesh. Those present at this affair would tap into Ruach HaKodesh from Hashem, Shashchina Shayra Mitay Simcha. Due to the immense Simcha experience there, the Shechina would come and rest on them. The Sivahikin Naginam and Naginam, Ruach Hashem. Through instruments, through singing, through Simcha, we draw upon ourselves the Ruach of Hashem. In fact, the Yeshama brings a story, a Maisi. Uvda the Yoina ben Amitai. It was a story involving the famous Navi Yoina ben Amitai. Where did he get his Nevuah? The first time he experienced Nevuah was where? During Simchas Beis HaShe'eva. Sha'ila ma'ila regal. He was one of the people being Eila Regel. Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, Shor Salav Shechina. When he took part in Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, he was Zeicha to the Ruach Hashem, to the Shechina. And that's when he began his career as a Navi. Okay, so getting back to the Gemara, we had Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, place of drawing, a Simcha on account of drawing water, Ruach HaKodesh. Uman the Tani Chashuva, says the Gemara, the one who learned Chashuva le'mishtabish, that's also correct. It also makes sense. It's also appropriate. Amar of Nachman, mitzvah Chashuva. This mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim, drawing and pouring the water, is a mitzvah Chashuva, a mitzvah of great prominence. Uba'a Mesheshes Me'Bereshis, something which originated all the way back from the 6 days of creation, as we learned the other day. The water would be poured into the shisen, the deep hollow cavities beneath the mizbech, which would extend downward all the way to the core of the world. It's a mitzvah chashuva. The Maharsha explains, based on the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, the point of Nisach HaMayim is to bring about a shefa bracha, rainfall, and shefa parnasa to the world. And indeed, by going all the way down and touching the core, so to speak, of the world, of the earth, it brings about this shefa and positively impacts the entire world. So we have two versions, either Simchas Beis HaShe'eva on account of a drawing, Simchas Beis Chashuv on account of its prominence and chashivas. Tanur Rabbanan, we learned in the Bryce, Hecholu doiches HaShabbos, Divrei Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yossi, the blowing of the flute, performing those instruments, would be something that is doiches Shabbos. You meant to know that not only is performing with instruments not going to be Deicha Shabbos, but it's not even going to override Yom Tov. Okay, so clear cut machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda says playing instruments in the Beis Hamikdash is important enough to override Shabbos. According to Rabbanan, it can't put away Shabbos and even Yom Tov. Now, what instruments are we speaking about? Which challah, which flute, which orchestra? When is it taking place? Amar Rav Yosef, I'll explain. Machlekes b'shir shel korban. The discussion over here revolves around the shira, the instrument playing during the time of a korban, a typical korban, a korban tamid. Which required shira. Now, shira contained two elements. There was shira bepeh, the Levian would actually verbally express shira, psukim of Tehillim, etc. So we had the vocals, we had the choir, and we had the kli, the kalim, various instruments which would take part in the shira. Now, all throughout the year, whenever there was a carbon, Rashi will bring for us, whenever we had a carbon, especially we had Nisuch HaYayin on Karbanos, not Sukkos related, throughout the entire year, there was Shira that took place. The Levim would sing, the Levim would play. And then we have on Sukkos as well. On Sukkos we have the additional element of Nisuch HaMayim. And there as well we had the Shira. And we have the Shira of Simchas Pesach She'eva, as discussed in our Mishnah, which was not necessarily during the time of Nisuch. It went throughout the entire night, as we're going to see by Hashem tomorrow in tomorrow's daf. So which chalal are we speaking about? Again, we had a machlokes. Basically, Rabbi Yehuda says instrument playing in the Beis Hamikdash is deicha Shabbos. Chacham say it's not important enough to be deicha Shabbos. Even Yom Tov is not going to be deicha. Now, what are we speaking about? Which orchestra is playing? Is it an orchestra playing in honor of a typical carbon, a Shabbos Tamid? Or are we speaking about instruments playing l'kavod simchas Pesach She'eva throughout the entire night? Amar Rav Yosef machlokes b'shir shel carbon. This discussion pertains to a shir which took place during bringing a carbon throughout the year, which is required min haTorah. It's part of the hakravas hakarbon. The Rabbi Yosef Savar Ika Shira B'Kli. Rashi says you can use instruments because the main element, the primary element within the Shira arrangement were the kalim, were the instruments. The vocals, the choir, was just to supplement the orchestra. And therefore, since the Kli plays a pivotal role in the Shira, it's like a Kli Sharis. V'avoida, it's part of the Avoida. V'deichas HaShabbos. Of course it's Deichas Shabbos, just as the Akrav of the carbon is Deichas Shabbos, anything that comes along with it. Anything that's deemed part of the Akravas HaKarbon is Deichas Shabbos. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, throughout the year, even on Shabbos, instrument playing during Akravas HaKarbon is Deichas Shabbos. Whereas the Rabbanan hold, Rabbanan Savri, Ikar Shira V'Pleh, the primary Shira was expressed by Peh, vocally. The choir, or the Levim, they were the ones who performed the Ikar Shira. Instruments, they were there to supplement, to add some flavor, to enhance the vocals. If that's the case, instrument playing is not considered primary. It's not really an integral part of the Avodah. And doesn't justify overriding Shabbos. When it comes to the instrument playing during the Simchas Pesach She'eva, all agree. That's just an enhanced expression of Simcha. That's not really required min haTorah. That's not Deichas Shabbos. According to Rav Yosef's Pshat, in the machlokes between the Tanoim, we conclude like this. When it's Simchas Pesach She'eva, all agree. It's not Deichas Shabbos. That's not an Avodah. That's not a Krava. As we learned in our Mishnah, it's not Deichas Shabbos or Yom Tov. Regarding Shira, which took place during the Akrava of an ordinary carbon throughout the year, a Tamid, for instance, here we have a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says instruments were the main presenter of the shir, and therefore they're considered Kli Sharis, performing Avodah, and not part of the Avodah HaKarbon and Deichas Shabbos. We do away with our concern of the Shvus, of repairing the Kli Sharis. We leave that alone, and we use the Kelim. According to Rabbanan, Ika Shira B'Peh, vocals, choir. That's the main element of Shira. The instruments are just coming to enhance that experience. They're not considered an integral part of the Avodah, and we can't use them on Shabbos. Let's take a look at Rashi, perhaps. 2 lines from the top. So the machlokes revolves around b'shir shel carbon. B'chol hamakel l'fnei mizbeach b'shach nisuch hamayim b'ayayin tom shel shachar. Whenever they had these instruments in honor of the nisuch hamayim b'ayayin for tom shel shachar, nisuch hayayin tom shel abayim. Shal Levim oimdu al dechanim. Levim would position himself on their stage. V'oimrim shir, and would express shira. V'achol makel l'fnei. He had this flute playing makel because you would tap the holes. So playing the flute. K'esnam masechas erechan b'dbeis yom b'shana chalul makel fnei mizbeach ve'ein oimrim shel mizbeach el al yayin. So shir would take place when they would pour wine on the mizbeach. Damrin and hasa. Pertaining to that playing of instruments, we have this machlokes. Rabbi Yossi says it's Deicha Shabbos because ikar shira shekarban tzibur ton shir min haTorah. Shir is a required element in hakrava. We learn it from the Torah. We have many psukim. Rabbi Yossi ikar hashir einay elim kein cholol makei mashir. So that's a known fact. Shir is min haTorah. The question is, how do we define shir? Rabbi Yossi says instruments. So we need the chalal, we need that flute, v'chein kinoiris, harps, v'navalim, some type of lyres, violins. Hakoil k'minyan ha'mefurasham, just as the Gemara describes in Mesechus Erechim, we had a multitude of instruments. That was needed. Shir is produced by instruments. Hilkach avodah is considered an integral part of the avodah. And just as the carbon itself is Deicha Shabbos, shir shalei nami Deicha Shabbos. We understand the shir comes along. It's also Deicha Shabbos. So according to the Rabbi Yehuda, instrument playing was mutter on Shabbos in the Beis Hamikdash. It's not avodah. Chacham hold ika shir b'peh. No, vocals. The mouth. Expressing shir b'peh, that's the main shir. Halavim oimrim hashir dvarayim b'yoymai. K'goyin Hashem ha'aretz ha'malaya. Barishan, on the first day of the week, was Hashem Aretz Malaya. God Hashem Mulhoil B'Sheni. The second week was the other pasuk. V'chein kulam. Throughout the week, they would alternate between one pasuk and the other. U'b'Shabbos she'ef shalachal ein edoicha. On Shabbos, you can't use an instrument. Fine, don't use it. She'ein klei shir hamitzvah. Instruments aren't really a pivotal feature of the shir arrangement. U'kamon yafinu tamei b'kurei. The Gemara later will present the sources for these shittas. So again, when it comes to the shir, which was performed by the karbanos, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can use instruments, even on Shabbos. It's an avodah. Chacham say, ikar shir is b'peh. Vocals are the primary element of the shir, in which case, we don't allow instruments if it's on Shabbos. Aval shir shel shalei regarding playing instruments throughout the entire night during Simchas Beis HaSheva, Shoyu Kol HaLayla, Al Malas HaYordes Ezras Yisrael Ezras Noshim took place on these steps, coming from Ezras Yisrael to Ezras Noshim. K'tanim Asnisim, we're going to see tomorrow's daf, Ezras Hashem. V'Alavim b'Kinoris b'Nevalim, and the Levim would be playing various instruments. Divrei HaKoil, in that case, all agree. Simcha Yiseri, it's an extra expression of Simcha. Ve'ena min HaTorah, it's not mandated in HaTorah. Ela l'chava v'sam mitzvahs, to show endearment to mitzvah. That doesn't justify Chilul Shabbos. It's not called an avodah, which allows setting aside Shabbos. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. So again, we have machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says you can use instruments even on Shabbos. Chacham say you can't. According to Rabbi Yosef's interpretation, it's because Rabbi Yehuda holds the kli makes the shira. It makes the avodah. It's a kli sharis, and you can do avodah on Shabbos. According to Chachamim, the peh is the one that produces the shir. Instruments, it's just an enhancement, and doesn't justify Chilul Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Yosef says the Gemara, how do I know the Bahachi Pligi? And indeed, my interpretation of the Machlokes is correct. That, according to Rabbi Yehuda, instruments make the shir. He's going to bring another discussion, which is not actually related to our discussion, and from there he will derive that Rabbi Yehuda holds ikar shira b'kli. The son you had a machlekes regarding the appropriate substance to be used to form a kli sharis. Kli sharis she'atzon shel eitz. Suppose he used wood to form a kli sharis. Does that work? Rabbi Paisel invalidates it. You can't use a wooden kli sharis. You need metal. For Rabbi Yehuda Machshir, he says even a kli sharis shel eitz is suitable for avodah. So what's the background? What's the basis of this machlekes? Maila boka miflekish. You would not assume that their machlekes is based on the following shaila. Man the machshir savar. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can use a kli sharis shel eitz. He holds ikar shir b'kli. So before we begin, we have to know one thing. Then in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, there was a wooden instrument. Rashi brings it avav Shel Moshe. There was a flute made from a reed, type of wood. So it was a wooden instrument which was used in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu to produce shira. The question is, will that provide a precedent to this halacha, that you can make a kli sharas from eitz? So all agree that the fact is a fact. They used a wooden instrument in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Can we learn from here to elsewhere or not? That's going to be the point of discussion. Ma the machsher. Rabbi Yehuda says you can use a kli sharas shel eitz even today. You can make a bowl, a vessel, a spoon, whatever you need for the Beis Hamikdash. You can make it out of wood. Ma the machsher, sabra, he holds ikar shira b'kli. The kli is what produces shira. V'alfinan mabu v'demoish. And we can learn from Moshe Rabbeinu's flute. Look, we had a wooden flute, a flute which produces shira, which produces carbon, avoid. I mean, right? The ikar shira is b'kli. He's taking part in the avoid. So you see that a kli sharas can be made of wood. Likewise, make any kli sharas of wood, no problem. Uman the apostle. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot make a kli sharas from wood. He holds you can't learn from Moshe Rabbeinu's flute. That was just an instrument, which is a secondary feature in the choir. It's not a kli sharas. It's not producing avoida. Uman the apostle Savar. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't use wood. He holds yikar shira b'peh. Vocals, choir, that produces shira. Wooden flutes, they're there to enhance the sound, to add some sweetness, but they're not considered kli sharas, not part of the avoida arrangement. In which case you can't learn anything from there. So this is all Rav Yosef speaking. I've just proven to you that Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda the Tana holds ikar shira b'kli, exactly as I had suggested earlier. Says we're not so fast. Perhaps that's not the correct pshat. The kuli alma ikar shira b'kli. Perhaps all agree. Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda will both agree that the kli, the instrument, is what produces the main element of shira. True. And the wooden flute of Moshe Rabbeinu partook in the avodah as a kli sharas. Right? It was serving the carbon. Kli sharas. It's true, 100%. No. So what's the shaila? Whether you can learn from there or not. And over here the discussion revolves around the next shaila. B'danin efshar m'shei efshar. The question is, can one learn from a situation where there is no alternative? Nowadays, efshar, you can make a kli sharas, any material you wish. You can make it from metal, from wood. You can make a spoon, a vessel, a kli, anything you want. Can you go ahead and learn this from efshar, from the instrument of Moshe Rabbeinu, where there was no alternative? And it had to be made of a reed. Rashi brings that there was a story that they tried to plate it with gold and it didn't work. It lost its sweetness. So it had to be made of wood. Could you learn one from the other? But done an efshar, mishei efshar kamiflagi. The question is, are you allowed to learn from a case where there's no alternative to a case where you have an alternative? That's a shaila. Man the machsher, according to Rabbi Yehuda says, we can learn from there that any kli sharas can be of wood. He holds savar done an efshar mishei efshar. Yeah, you can learn one from the other. So although the avav shel Moshe can only be fashioned, made from wood, made from a reed, bottom line is the term sets down a precedent that a kli sharas can be of wood. Okay, so that can be extended and applied for all time. Fact is, the kli sharas can be made of wood. Umad apostle Sava. Whereas Rabbi who says no, you can't make a kli sharas of wood, he holds, I agree. Moshe Rabbeinu's flute, he had no alternative. That's the only way to make a flute. Why done an efshar? You can't learn a situation where you have options, such as today when you want to make a kli from wood. You have options, you have alternatives. You can't learn today's situation, mishei efshar, from that flute, where there was no option other than making it from a reed. And therefore he says, rather than learn from the avav shel Moshe, which was wooden, we go learn from the menorah, where we find that Torah tells us to make it from gold, from metal. And likewise, all kli sharas need to be made from metal only. Another possible pshat in this machlokes can be the kuli alma ikashira bepeh. You know what? Everybody perhaps agrees that vocals are the ones that produce the ikashira, and the instruments are there just there to turn the hands. They're not considered klei sharis. In which case, there's nothing to learn from Avuva de Moshe. Sure, there was a wooden flute, an instrument. It's not a klei sharis. There's nothing to learn from there. So that's certainly not providing any source to our halacha. Or, says the Gemara, vi is like or alternatively, perhaps everybody holds ikar shira b'kli. The instrument is the one that provides the ikar shira, and it is a klei sharis. So why not learn from Moshe Rabbeinu's flute? Ve'ein danan efshar m'shi efshar. You can't learn one situation from another situation. You can't learn from a case where you have no alternative. It's not fair. So in any case, Moshe Rabbeinu's flute doesn't provide anything. Doesn't provide any source for whether or not you can make a klei sharis shalates. So what then is the point of machlokes between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yehuda, who says you can form a klei sharis from wood, whereas Rebbe disagrees? What's the point of machlokes? Terence says they're both learning from menorah, the same source. The question just is how? What formula do you apply by menorah? We know that in the 13 formulas, the Gimel Midas, that form the basis of Torah Sheba'al Peh, we have something called klal prato klal. We have something called ribui miut ribui. There are different ways, different formulas of deriving halachas. The question is which formula to apply to menorah. Vacha b'meilav menorah. The question is, do we learn from menorah using the formula of bichlali, general term, uprati, a specific term, which will result in the halacha telling us that a klei sharis cannot be made from eitz, or perhaps we'll apply the other formula, ribuye, inclusive, umiute, exclusive, which will result in allowing us to use klei sharis shalates. That's the point of the machlekes, as the Gemara explains. Rabbi Darish Kloli Prati. According to Rabbi, we apply the concept of Klal Prat, and therefore you cannot use klei sharis shalates. Rabbi Yosef or Yehuda Darish Ribuya Mu'ute. He applies the Ribuya Miut formula, in which case you can use a klei sharis shalates. How does this work? The Gemara elaborates. Rabbi Darish Kloli Prati as follows. The pasuk begins V'asisa menorahs. Make a menorah from anything. Klal. It's a general term. Unspecified. Any material can be used for the menorah. The pasuk continues, Zav tar, very specific term, gold, pure gold. Prat, that's a specific term. But then the pasuk continues with another general term, Miksha te'asa menorah. The menorah should be made of something, hewn out of a block of something. So it doesn't describe which material. Chazer v'kol. Once again, we have a general term. So in summary, we have klal, a general term, as is in menorahs. Uprat, a specific term, zav tar. Uklal, another general term which follows. What does this tell us? Iyatadon, you can only derive elok en prat. It has to be similar to the specifics, to the defined manner, to zav, which means ma ha-prat mefurash shal mateches. Just as the prat is clearly specified as being some type of metal material, av kol shel mateches. Likewise, any klei sharis has to conform to that. It has to be made of metal. It can't use wood. So you start with a klal, vasisa menorahs, any material, metal, wood, anything. The pasuk continues, zahav tar, which is basically defining what the klal means. Gold. But then the Torah comes back with another general term, ti'asa menorah, to tell you know what, add something to gold. As long as it's similar to gold, as long as it's metallic, that's okay. But it has to be metal. So not just gold, but something similar to gold as well. Any metal is suitable. That's the conclusion of the klal prat to klal formula. So according to Rabbi, it has to be metal. A klei sharis of eitz is possible. On the other hand, Rabbi Yehuda Darish, he applies a different formula. Ribuye umiute. Inclusions and exclusions. The pasuk starts v'asisa menorahs, a general term inclusive, riba, including all types of materials. Zahav tar, the pasuk continues, zahav tar miet. By doing so, a tar is might. You know what? excludes something. So it's different than prat. It's not defining what it has to be. It's just, excludes something. Excludes something which is dissimilar, totally not similar to zav. But something similar to zav, such as any metal, would be acceptable. So we're already starting off higher than Rebbe. We're not limiting it to gold. First we started with anything. Then we said, b'mai, it's something which is totally dissimilar to gold, such as wood, such as cheres. But something which is similar in nature to gold, such as any other metal, is also acceptable. And then the Torah even adds further. Miksha to asa menorah. You can use anything. Once again, we have an inclusive term, chazav riboy. There is again marba included more. So the starting point was, any metal is good, now we're adding even more. We're going to add even wood. Riba umiyat v'riba. We have a riboy, a miyut, and a riboy. As a result, we have riba hakol Torah meant to include anything. So not only gold, not only something similar to gold, meaning metal, even wood. As long as you exclude something. My Rabbi, what did the Torah include? Rabbi Yekal Mili, any material, even wood. My miyut. What did the Torah exclude? We have to exclude something. There is a miyut there. Miyut shel cheres. What's the most probable substance to exclude from klei sharis use? The most inferior material. Earthenware, klei cheres. Apparently that's what the Torah had in mind. But anything else, such as gold, metal, even wood, is perfectly acceptable. And that's Rabbi Yehuda's sheet. Okay, let's just summarize the last piece of Gemara. So what is halacha regarding klei sharis shel eitz? Now let's just remember, we have a precedent. We have Avav de Moshe Rabbeinu's flute, which was shel eitz. Okay, so what's the halacha? Rabbi holds, typically, klei sharis shel eitz is pasul. Rabbi Yehuda says it's kasha. We had several ways to explain the machlekes. Initially, the Gemara figured, Rabbi holds, vocals create shira, and therefore you can't learn from Moshe Rabbeinu's instrument, which wasn't really a klei sharis. And as a result, a klei sharis shel eitz is not acceptable. According to Rabbi Yossi, the instrument produces the shira. The fact that they used a wooden flute in time of Moshe to produce shira, apparently a klei sharis can be made of eitz. The Gemara reverts from this pshat, says no, perhaps everybody agrees. A kli is the one that makes the shira. Rabbi holds you still can't learn from Moshe because an instrument had to be made of eitz, otherwise it wouldn't work. But typically a klei sharis cannot be made of wood. Ein done in efsha mishi efsha. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says the bottom line is we find the klei sharis of eitz, Moshe Rabbeinu's flute. So although over there you had no alternative, doesn't matter. We can still extend that halacha elsewhere, and we learn that any klei sharis can be made of wood. Going to the next pshat in the Gemara, it wasn't a question of what the ikar element in shira is. Perhaps everybody agrees. Vocals are the main element. Perhaps everybody agrees a kli is the main element. We still can't learn from Moshe Rabbeinu because over there you had no alternative. So what then is the source of contention here? Everybody learns from menorah. The question is how to learn from menorah. According to Rebbe, it's klal prat to klal. Klal says any material can be used for klei sharis. Prat says only gold. Comes back another klal and says not only gold, but something similar to gold, any matechas, any metal, except for wood. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's ribu miyut ribu. So we start with a ribu, inclusive term. Any material can be used. When the Torah comes back with a miyut, zav, Torah is telling you know what? Exclude something. But anything that's similar to zav is acceptable. Any metal is acceptable. When the Torah adds another ribu afterwards, and in fact the Torah is adding even wood, as long as it excludes something, let's assume only cheres is excluded. Okay, let's summarize briefly today's daf. When they had to prepare the water in advance of Shabbos, they had to fill it in a kli which was not kodesh. The had a kasha. What's the problem? And the Gemara concluded that either you have a concern of real lina, or there's a gzeira. People might think there's lina. To avoid confusion, we avoid using a kli kodesh. What about exposed water? Well, according to Rabbanon, there's a real concern there might be some venom in there, and then you're missing the shear. According to Nechemi, even running it through a strainer would be problematic because it's still not high quality material to be used as a carbon. We learned about Simchas Beis HaShe'eva. Some refer to it as Beis HaShe'eva, some as Beis Chashuva on account of its prominence. We learned a Machlekes Tanaim whether playing instruments with Doicha Shabbos v'Yantiv. According to Rav Yossi's approach, all agree Beis HaShe'eva, that's not Doicha Shabbos. That's only a Simcha Yasera which was not part of the Hakrava, not part of the Avodah, and doesn't justify Chilul Shabbos. Regarding instrument playing during Hakrava's Karbanis throughout the year, here we have a machlokes. Rabbanan say it doesn't justify Chilul Shabbos because the main element of Shira produced by vocals, the peh, and therefore the instruments which are just coming to enhance the experience are not considered an integral part of the Avodah, which are Deicha Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Instruments produce the Shira, Ika Shira B'Kli, in which case it is Deicha Shabbos, just as the carbon is Deicha Shabbos. We ended with machlokes between Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda regarding Kli Shor Shel Eitz. We know that in Moshe Rabbeinu's time they used a wooden flute. The question is regarding a typical Kli Shoros used for Avodas HaKarban. According to Rabbi Pasel, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's kosher. We had several ways to explain the machlokes. Kultiv to and much hatzlacha.